Procedure Review Commission. We are here for a plenary meeting of the commission. It is now 12 p.m. December 7th, and this meeting is now called to order.
In the roll call. Honorable Jonathan R. Guam,
Present, Guam Judicial Center, Aganya.
Honorable Maria T. Saldana,
Present on Zoom.
Honorable Anita A. Sokola,
Retired on Zoom. Good morning.
Attorney William Bucky Brennan,
Hafidi, I'm present for my office in again.
DOC Director Fred Bergalio or designee Major Anton F. Uggan, Chief of Police Stephen Ignacio or designee Major Manny Chong,
Present via Zoom.
Attorney Joseph B. McDonald, Attorney Randall F. Cunliffe on site. Mr. Monty McDowell,
Present from my office in Harmon.
Attorney Stephen Hattori or designee Attorney John Morrison,
John Morrison, President, Guam Judicial Center, Hagana.
Attorney General Douglas Moylan or designee Assistant Attorney General Stephen Cody,
Presence from the Guam Judicial Center.
Attorney Michael Phillips, Miss Valerie Rages, Attorney Christine Tenorio, Attorney Philip Benico.
Here in court.
Ex official members, Executive Director Serge Kano,
Present at the Judicial Center.
Compiler of Laws Jerry Cepeda, President at the Judicial Center. Mr. Chairman, there are 9 commission members present.
Mr. Executive Director, we have a quorum, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have a quorum present.
Thank you. I ascertain we have a quorum and can conduct business of the commission at this meeting. Before continuing, Judge Maria T. Senzon, our newest commission member, appointed by Governor Leon Guerrero last month. Welcome, Maria. I also wanted to recognize Attorney General Douglas Moylan's designee, Assistant Attorney General Stephen Cody, and GPD Stephen Ignacio's new designee, Major Manny Chung. All 3 of you, welcome. We are glad to have you with us and your expertise. We will also welcome. Go ahead, please.
Oh, I apologize. Thank you.
Welcome all. All right.
Chairman,
We will.
I am also present.
Attorney Cunliffe is present.
Brian Evanston.
That's 9.
And Anton Uggan.
And who?
Anton Uggan and Brian Evanston.
Anton Uggan is also present, and Brian Eggleston is present as well. Thank you. Anything further? Just will continue.
We can continue, Mr. Chair.
Okay. On agenda item 4, minutes, we will table approval of the minutes of the commission's plenary meeting of October 5th, 2023 until our next plenary meeting. Finally, for my portion, on agenda item 5, old business, under old business, may I ask Executive Director Serge Kenga to address item 5A and B. Executive Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can we go to slide number 4, please? On our membership update, as the chairman has announced, we have our new members. They've already been introduced. I'd like to also welcome them and say that we are extremely happy that you are with us, and we look forward to working with everyone as we continue to work at the commission. The upcoming year is going to be extremely busy as we approach the deadline for the submission of our report to the Speaker, Governor, and the Chief Justice. This slide shows all the members who have been appointed and the subcommissions that we are members of. Can we go to the next slide, please? I'd also like to recognize our ex-official members, 6 volunteers who are not officially appointed, but who still working with our subcommissions and providing their expertise, and we thank them for their contributions. I'd also like to introduce our new commission staffers, Renee Meno and Gloria Duenas-Cruz, who are with us here in the courtroom. Renee is a former longtime clerk of the Guam legislature and brings many years of experience in reviewing and researching legislative materials and has a vast knowledge of legislative records. Gloria is a former assistant to the Comptroller of Laws, former staff attorney assistant in the Guam Supreme Court, and was a paralegal with the Attorney General's office. And she brings much knowledge in legal writing and research and work on the Guam Code annotated. I anticipate that Gloria and Renee will assist greatly in the upcoming year with the compiling and assembling of the CLRC's statutorily mandated reports. They are available to assist subcommissions in the research of statutes and other legal materials, and are available to sit on subcommission working sessions and provide any assistance. Please reach out to me anytime and I will be in touch with Gloria or Renee. If we could go to the next slide, please. I'd just like to announce that we did submit the 3rd quarter report. It's available online and it covers a period of time from July 1 to September 30 of this year. I encourage everyone to please review it. There's lots of material there, and it includes the first round of recommendations from the subcommissions that were covered in our previous meetings. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have on these agenda items.
All right, before we continue to the next issue, I want to point out that the addition of these legal researchers are invaluable and are going to be greatly a great amount of help going forward. Ms. Meno and Ms. Cruz will be providing a lot of muscle and voltage and take a lot of the burden off your subcommissions as you go through your tasks of going through the various statutes. We now have experienced researchers that can help fill out the various sheets that we're required to compile, and we'll be able to assist you with legal inquiries and research inquiries as we go forward. So I want to thank them for agreeing to assist us and welcome them as we go forward. If we could go to slide 7 now. Still under old business, we have item 5C, which is the update to the presentation provided on August 31st, 2023 at the plenary meeting by the Subcommission on Criminal Procedure. I asked Judge Sokola to introduce the presenter for the update from her Subcommission on Criminal Procedure. Judge Sokola, if you would.
Yes, thank you, Judge Kwan. This time I'm going to ask Mr. Serge Kenga to kindly give our presentation regarding the chapters that we had met. Members in our committee now, we have Mr. Stephen Cody. He is appointed by Mr. Moylan from the Attorney General's office. We have Brian Eagleston, who is also from the Public Defender's office, and Lenny Rapadas. Mr. Kenga, can you kindly brief the group?
Thank you, Judge Sokola. Okay. Just to introduce and recap where we are at. To expedite the review of Title IX, the Criminal and Correctional Code. The commission chairman assigned our subcommission to review the titles you see here before you. For an initial review, and they include chapters 71 through 93. Starting with the Gun Free School Zone Act and going down all the way to the Criminal Sexual Conduct Assessment and Rehabilitation Act. As you can see, all of these chapters that we were assigned very heavily involve corrections and law enforcement. Therefore, in October, our subcommission referred these chapters to our sister subcommissions as seen in the next slide. Next slide, please. So chapter 71, the Gun Free School Zone Act, we referred this to the subcommission on crimes against persons. 80 through 88, we referred to the subcommission on drugs and other criminal offenses. 89 and 93, we referred to both the DOCO and persons subcommissions. We hope to hear back from these subcommissions. We've heard some comments back from the subcommissions and members of other subcommissions on these chapters, and we'll present more, or these subcommissions will present more on these chapters in upcoming plenary sessions and work on them in working sections. Next slide, please. So our subcommission presented our initial review of the these Title IX chapters at the August 31 plenary meeting. Our recommendations were voted on or tabled for further discussion. Today, we will update the commission on the sections that were tabled. We'll also go back and look at sections in chapter 71, which our subcommission took a harder look at, and we'll present the suggested recommendations, updated recommendations for chapter 71. Next slide, please. So we'll start with 9 GCA section 7120, which again is from the Guam Gun Free School Zone Act of 2004. So the discussion at the August 31 meeting kind of focused on expanding the definition of firearm to include air rifles, BB guns, and possibly other dangerous or deadly weapons. So this section 7120 was tabled for further research and discussion on expanding the definition of firearm. I think it's kind of timely noting in the news today the mass shooting at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. We probably all know kids who are going to school there. I know at least 3 more kids who are going to school there. It really hits close to home when something like this happens. And so it illustrates what the purpose behind legislation like this is, to hopefully prohibit guns from being brought into school zones. So if we could go to slide 13, just jump to that real quick, Chair. One more. Okay, so here we have the definition section in chapter 71. Please disregard the strike through of concealed weapons. We'll point out, basically focus on for this discussion here on the definition of firearm 7120B. It says firearm shall mean as defined in 10 Guam Code annotated section 6100. Now, although I didn't include section 6100 in our slide presentation here, I'll read from the statute, and it says firearm means any weapon, the operating force of which is an explosive. This definition includes pistols, revolvers, rifles, shotguns, machine guns, automatic rifles, noxious gas projectors, mortars, bombs, cannon, and machine guns. The specific mention of certain weapons does not include from the definition of other weapons operated by explosives. So pretty expansive definition of firearm to include things that go boom.
Serge, may I interject? Also, chapter 60 is one of the chapters that my subcommittee is assigned to, so we might be reviewing that also, and our goal is actually to have that reviewed by next January. So,
Good.
so just wanted to put that that chapter is assigned to us, I believe.
We'll reconcile any conflicts, if any, come up between these subdivisions at a later time. So
Okay,
just go about your normal review process, and then any conflicts that we may have, we'll deal with them hash out later.
okay,
Which is good.
but I just wanted to note that, yeah.
Thank you. So Jerry, could we go back to 11? One more. Oh, that's good. Right. So regarding the definition, or whether the definition of firearm should be expanded, we looked at the legislature's intent in passing the Guam Gun-Free School Zone Act. Specifically, section 1 of Public Law 27-116, which enacted this act, provides that only firearms were intended to be covered. So what you see here is the stated legislative intent, and it includes only firearms, and that was the intent of the legislature. We're not convinced at this point that the definition should be expanded to other dangerous or deadly weapons. If you go to the next slide, please. So at the suggestion of our chair, Judge Sokola, I reached out to DOE legal counsel who provided copies of their policies on dangerous or deadly weapons. So they provided the DOE Board Policy 425 and the DOE Student Conduct Procedural Manual. And the language in both of these policies states the following: any student while at a school site or riding on a school bus found possessing an instrument which the principal or his designee determines to be a deadly weapon shall be suspended immediately, and a complete investigation shall be conducted. We provided this to the subcommission that the chapter was referred to, and just to mention that the policies will cover the internal policies of DOE cover other dangerous weapons, and it adds to our recommendation that there's no compelling need to expand on the definition of firearm in chapter 71. I invite any thoughts or comments on this from our members.
So just so that I'm clear, this is the chair. Firearm obviously is the standard definition in the code, but DOE's policy also prohibits in other areas. Air guns, BB guns, sticks, well, knives are deadly weapons, so they fall under 425,
Right.
but their own internal policies cover it.
And it's I think an expansive, it gives the principal or the principal's designee the discretion to determine what a deadly or dangerous weapon is. So it included almost anything imaginable. So then if there are no other comments, Judge Sokola?
No,
Okay,
thank you.
so then I'll go on to the other revised edits to chapter 71. Okay, so the slide, go back one more slide, please. Okay, so in section 7120, again, we don't want to at this time expand on the definition of firearm. However, 7120 subsection C, concealed firearm, we recommend that this subsection be deleted because the term concealed firearm doesn't occur anywhere else in chapter 71, so it's not necessary. Next slide, please. Can we remove that pop-up?
Oh, sorry.
Thanks, sir. Okay. So the next section, 7130, the changes here are basically intended to simplify the language of the section. They're not substantive, and they just clarify the section. Next slide. Same thing here on section 7140, on substantive clarifications, remove excess language. This doesn't change the section at all. Next slide, please. On section 7150, so this is an interesting section. So the original section 7150 contains two subsections, A and D. these subsections are identical to each other, except for the word loaded in subsection A. In subsection A, loaded firearms are prohibited from college campuses. In subsection B, any firearm is prohibited from college campuses unless, of course, there's an exemption or it's okayed by the college president. So if we remove the word loaded from A and delete B in its entirety, it accomplishes the same thing. So this, I would say, is a non-substantive clarification and just simplifies the section. If we go to
Hold on, I have a question for the chair, sorry. I haven't looked at this section very carefully, but can you just go through any applicability to a situation like Guam Community College with a firing range?
right, I think this was the carve out for the fire range at the community college.
Right.
Because it separates and distinguishes between school zones generally and college campuses. So the firing range at the Guam Community College, obviously that's been authorized and it's been operating for many years. And so it fits within the definition here. And so firearms are not prohibited from the GCC campus under this provision.
I have a question. This doesn't implicate like the police or law enforcement trainees that are carrying their firearms or the Army ROTC. Just a question. I don't know if it
There is a
does.
general exemption at the end of the chapter,
Okay,
which we'll cover that.
Okay.
It does exempt peace officers.
peace officers, okay.
In your research of A and B, do you have any inclination or indication of what B was meaning to try to cover? If not, that's fine, but you might not have.
I'm glad you brought that up, and I've been trying to think why they would do this, why the legislature would provide two sections. Basically, one section prohibiting loaded firearms, the other section not prohibiting loaded firearms. It just didn't make sense to me.
Mr. Chair, or sorry,
Mr. Brennan,
I didn't
go
want
ahead.
I didn't want to
Where-
cut Serge off, but if you recall the previous discussion we had on this, I think Judge Barrett Anderson may have been the senator that authored the legislation. And she did discuss with us the distinction between the loaded and unloaded firearms, as well as between A and B, if my memory serves. So that should be part of our, I think, may have been the 2 meetings ago. But she did provide some background that might be helpful, just if we're trying to divine the mind of the actual legislators. I think she articulated what she recalled. So I don't know if that will be helpful.
Do you recall what she said?
I think she, if memory serves, because I asked a similar question of why we are distinguishing between loaded and unloaded firearms in this specific section. And she said there may still be, the legislature may have still wanted to guard against the risk an unloaded firearm could carry on a college campus, but recognize some other reason, perhaps that law enforcement officer going to class after, that was what I understood. I don't know if she said that specifically, but a law enforcement officer going to campus after his shift to attend classes, for example. And that would be relevant to a college campus, but not, a high school.
Punishment. Okay, but I think the statute might have evolved because there is a carve out section on the back end that allows for that. Okay, thank you, Mr. Brennan.
And we can go back and look at this, even if this recommendation is approved, nothing stops us from.
It only goes to the final reading file.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on to section 7161. This is a non-substantive clarification, just to simplify the section. Next slide, please. What constitutes loaded firearm, section 7170? Now, if you call section 7130 as a general prohibition against bringing a firearm into a school zone, that section does not distinguish between loaded or unloaded firearms. And if we adopt or approve the recommended changes to 7150 above, then this section would no longer be necessary. If we choose to come back and say there was a reason for 7150B, and decide to keep it, then obviously then.
This
we
is
can
irrelevant.
keep This,
Yeah, okay.
this definition.
So just to be clear, right now, the subcommission's recommendation is to do away with the distinction, one, and then remove the references to loaded.
Right, because it wouldn't be necessary.
That makes sense.
Any thoughts on this?
It simplifies the problem in the statutes.
Okay, next section, sure. This, we discussed in the previous meeting on August 31. This simply, the deletions here simply remove outdated timing requirements. No longer necessary. Next section, next slide, please. So this is the exemption section, the exemption sections. 81, 71.82, and 71.83. The change here doesn't do anything substantively to these sections, but simply consolidates them into a single exemption section. And as you can see, section A, chapter doesn't apply to a duly appointed peace officer, as defined in Guam law. B applies to authorized on-duty security guards, and C, chapter doesn't apply to an existing shooting ranger at a public or private school or university or college campus. It's kind of a catch-all to prevent any issues for GCC's firing range.
So you're just suggesting a amalgamation of statute into law.
Right, just to consolidate.
Okay,
Next slide, please, Drew. So these are the recommendations that we are submitting for approval, and further discussion is desired, we can refer further action to the persons subcommission. Next slide, please, Drew. So the other subsection, one of the other subsections that was tabled at the August 31 meeting is section 8110 of Title 9. The section provides the opportunity for a person in custody to reduce his or her sentence by work credit. We referred this chapter 81 to the Subcommission on Drugs and Other Criminal Offenses, which has the Department of Corrections and the member agency. So at the August 31 meeting, Director Berdallo requested a change to make clear that work inside the Department of Corrections would be included for work credit. So we recommend the change that you see here, adding the language underlined and in red, including work details within the Department of Corrections. And it is, although it is arguable that the line above that, which states, or other types of work details beneficial to the other department, could include any work anywhere. I think this just makes it very clear and removes any argument that it would not, that work credit inside, I'm sorry, work details inside the Department of Corrections would not be included here. Thoughts or questions? Next slide, Chair. So also on section 8110, this is a little more of a difficult issue. At the August 31 plenary meeting, Attorney Brennan raised the issue that work credit under the section is essentially not available to first-time DWI offenders who generally serve 48 hours by pay agreement. So he suggested the following amendment to section 8110F. We'd like to present this for information only. Refer this to the DOCO subcommission for further discussion. I would point out though, and although I didn't include it in the slides, section 8110C states that an inmate must work 40 hours to reduce his or her sentence by 1 day for general cleaning work details, or 2 days for work details that involve education or on-the-job training. So if a first-time offender is sentenced to a 48-hour
By statute.
sentence, then this work credit wouldn't be available to somebody in that situation. So it seems more of a policy question to be thought about by the subcommission, whether it wants to go in that direction. So I think rather than providing a recommendation, we'd rather refer it to DOCO for further discussion.
This is Randy Cunliffe. I just have a question that if you're going to discuss it further, I think about it. That is the 48 hours is mandatory. So can it be reduced by the person working in the prison? I don't think that makes sense.
I think that has to be thought through.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the issue that the issue I was trying to raise is right now the statute says we have a work credit program. If you work for 40 hours, you get 2 days off. And then it says specifically this shall apply to first-time offenders. So to Randy's point, that statute, you can't reconcile the two, the mandatory minimum versus this shall apply to first-time offenders. And that's why if we're not going to remand an appeal, I do think just the irreconcilability needs to be addressed by the commission, because it just doesn't make sense if you read a first-time offender's sentence and virtually all first offenders are going to get 48 hours versus they have to work 5 days. Yeah, so I think that's the concern. I'm with Randy on that. It doesn't make sense right now the way it's written.
Thanks, Bucky, for clarifying that. You explained it much better than I could have.
Okay, so this can be referred to DOCO.
Okay. Next section, please. So the other section that was tabled, section 8220. So Attorney John Morrison raised the possibility that under this section, a convicted person might be absolutely prohibited from voting in an election. However, section 8220 provides that the convicted person convicted under a sentence of imprisonment is disqualified from voting. So although this language might be enough to limit the prohibition to persons actually in prison, we recommend adding the language here to avoid any potential conflict or confusion. And so that would add into 8220A the words "and physically incarcerated." Just to make it clear that you have to actually be within the DOC compound or something similar.
Physically prevented from voting.
Right.
I see. So your intention is not to strip the voting right while they have been convicted for a term of incarceration, but only the ones that are actually physically committed.
Right. I think this is what the intent of the statute is.
After parole, they can vote.
No, after the release.
After the release.
After the release, while they're on parole.
Yeah, they can vote.
Any comments?
No.
So this clarifies that it's not a lifelong prohibition for after conviction.
It's only prohibition while you're incarcerated specifically.
Right. And clears up that if you're committed to probation or parole, that you can continue to vote as long as you're out of the confines of DOC.
Right. That's really all we have to present today. Go to the next slide there. I have here a table that the chairman can go through just to memorialize what might be voted on today.
Okay, so we're gonna hold vote now.
Sure.
All right, so if you go to the spreadsheet here, let's look at the first one. I'm gonna call for a vote at this point in time. 7120, the subcommission's recommendation to amend as indicated. At this point, I'm gonna call for vote. All those in favor, please indicate aye.
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 Any opposed? There being none opposed, that is moved to the final reading file. At this point, 7130, subcommission's recommendation is to amend. One more time. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There being none, that goes to the final reading file. Next one is 7140. Actually, I'm gonna push this a little forward. 7140, 7150, 7161. Those three, the subcommission recommended amendments, which we went through. All those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. This is Judge Senzon.
Yes, Judge.
For the For the discussions on the amendments that I was not present for, I'm just going to abstain from voting.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, we understand.
Thank you.
So that still leaves us with 8, right? 8 voting. That's still enough. Okay, so at this point, 7140, 7150, 7161. All those opposed to the subcommission's recommendation amendment. There being none, that is moved to the final reading file. 7170, specifically 7170, which repeals what constitutes a loaded firearm from the chapter, since they're indicating it's superfluous based on the streamlining of the rest of the statutes. The subcommission is recommending repeal of 7170. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? There being none, that is moved to the final reading file. Lastly, 7180, 7181, 8110, and 8220. The subcommission all recommended amendments for those. This executive director went through them. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There being none, those are moved to the final reading file. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, the final reading file, the last few months of the commission, perhaps the last two meetings or 3, we're going to take these up. If anybody has had a change of heart or any discussions are needed to proceed further on, but at this point, those are hereby moved to the final reading file. Next on the agenda, Mr. Executive Director.
I believe we are now on the presentation by the subcommission on crimes relating to property will be tabled.
Okay. We're going to do this now?
And we'll be on new business.
Okay. Mr. Tenico, at this point, you're gonna need a little more time, correct?
Right, just for information purposes, our goal is to try to complete review of our next 2 chapters, which would be the firearms and miscellaneous 60 and 70, which leaves us 2 other chapters.
Okay.
We are trying to get, there were 2 other members that had some concerns about 2 sets of statutes and weren't able to make the meeting, so we give them one more opportunity to come to the subcommittee and raise their issues. If it's not raised, then it goes forward. We'll report back that that's defaulted as approved.
At least you have criminal procedure subcommission's guidance on how they view the firearms section.
Right. So, but and so that's what's kind of delayed us. Plus, November's just a bad month to schedule anything. So, we're going to give there were 2 members that raised issues. We'll give them one more opportunity to show up to a meeting in January to see what their concerns were and whether we change it or whatever. So,
all right. Well, I want to thank you because your subcommission did quite a bit of work up on the front end, so you're a little bit ahead of schedule, which is fine. Thank you. Moving on to new business, we have item 6A, the presentation of additional recommendations from the subcommission on drugs and other criminal offenses. At this point, after this meeting, Judge Senzal will be taking subcommission chair position on that subcommission. So at this point in time, I'll ask the acting subcommission chair, her last duties as acting subcommission chair, the compiler of laws. Mr. Taylor, please go forward. You have the floor.
I just wanted to say I welcome Judge Senzon to the subcommission.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry.
This provision that is suggested here, it's a new 90-106 regarding correctional medical facilities, correctional medical clinics. This was the suggestion of former chair Judge EDA based on her work with DOC at the time with Attorney Kat Focus. And this is a rather long provision. It spans 3 slides here. And it's discussing just the health services available at DOC. This did pass through the commission, so our subcommission did vote to approve this at the time of our last meeting, our last plenary meeting. We were concerned, I'll admit, we were concerned with what had been repealed and what had been amended. the addition of a new provision did slide under the radar, so this is being presented now. But it had been approved by the subcommission. I do suggest that considering the breadth of it and how much it would affect, that the commission take some time to review it. And I also would ask for more time because this was a very strong suggestion of Judge EVA, that she also be given the opportunity to present her perspective and the reason why she wants it added to chapter 90. She was not able to attend this meeting. I do hope she's able to attend in February. But in the meantime, if the subcommission members are able to take a look at it, to review and then to perhaps think about any questions they may want to pose at the next meeting, the next plenary meeting. Because this is going to be a suggestion, but it has again passed through a subcommission as a new provision.
All right, so I understand that your subcommission worked quite diligently and worked very hard on this particular new suggested amendment. I know it was passed by your subcommission, but I would like the new chair, Judge Senzan, to provide her input and generate further discussion amongst her subcommission, DOCO, on this new suggested provision. So at that point, given that, I think it's prudent that we table this to allow Judge Senzan an opportunity for her to work with her subcommission to determine if she wishes to do this particular provision, and we will await it being brought forward at the next plenary meeting. That being said, the next plenary meeting will be scheduled for February 8th, Thursday, February 8th, 12 o'clock. Please go back to the agenda on slide 32. Under item 7, I have no communications to present. Under item 8, are there any comments from anyone? There being none, I want to thank you all for your work. I understand it's a busy time. I want to welcome our new members and Judge Senzan, and also our very valuable researchers that will be helping us. I encourage the subcommissions to utilize the resources and the new staff that will be the experts that we have to assist us. And if there being no other comments, thank you for your work. And is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All of you, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays.
Thank
Aye.
you.
Ben,
I gave
we're good.
I gave Gloria